Any video you make with borrowed content can get you in hot water faster than you can say, tell your legislator to vote yes. So, short of calling the lawyers every week and enduring hundreds of dollars an hour, what can you do to protect yourself while rapidly responding to our ever-changing political environment with engaging and impactful digital video content? What is up, filmmakers? It's Jordan, and I am not a lawyer. All of this or none of this might apply to you, but I can't protect you from legal recourse. And even if you follow everything in this episode today, you might still have some trouble. That being said, you guys remember easybib.com and the owl at Purdue writing lab from college? I think every bibliography I made passed through one of those two sources. The one thing they taught me was there's no one way for citation. MLA, Chicago, AMA, APA. So which one should you be using in your videos? You've pulled news clips, stock footage, images, and music. You've referenced articles and publications. There's no way you can fit the traditional bibliography, sometimes 2 or 3 pages of indecipherable walls of text, into your one video. But you don't need the full rigorous citation that a traditional paper and print bibliography holds. If someone wants to find something you've referenced, it's as simple as a Google search. Just make sure you give them enough information that they can easily find the originals. The format I see most often is a simplified version of APA, which makes sense. It's a common journalist citation format, and everything we're doing here is at least a little bit journalistic. For us here at Progress Now, the best thing we can do is look at other digital media and see how they're tackling the citation problem. So let's look at some examples. Vox, one of my absolute favorite edutainment sources, has a straightforward approach. They list the top-level names of sources in their end credits for research, images, footage, and music. And that's it. Let's look at another example. Adam Ruins Everything, another type of edutainment. This myth-busting educational comedy show tackles a different common misconception each episode. You should definitely go watch it. Interestingly, they cite the source at the exact time that they refer to it in the episode. It makes sense for Adam Ruins Everything because they're often referring to statistics and scientific articles. It's useful for the viewer to see a reassuring citation right at the moment that they hear an otherwise baffling number. Other groups like CNBC News Online, PBS's EONS series, The New York Times, Last Week Tonight, and Vice all have minimalist citations in their videos, usually at the end credits, and some like Kurzgesagt and SciShow link to larger bibliographies as a separate document hosted through their parent website. What should you do? Well, that depends. The biggest factor is what type of content we're talking about. The most basic citation goes something like footage, Shutterstock, VideoBlocks, Wikimedia, and then music, Artlist, audio blocks, and so forth. The somewhat more thorough simplified APA generally follows the formula headline, publication, and date. For studies and journal articles, it usually goes authors, publication, and date. So let's look at some types of footage you might need to cite. Public domain and archival footage is content that has well and truly fallen out of any copyright. It's free for anyone to use anywhere in any way. You can use it for commercial use, which means selling it or advertising a product with it. You can modify it, you can re-upload it to your own website and host it there. All of this, and you don't have to cite the original author or even the group that was hosting it. For all intents and purposes, it's yours, but you still might want to say where you got the footage from, just for those of us who are curious, and also because it lends you some legitimacy if you cite your sources. Just a simple line pointing to the host website and the title of the clip is plenty for anyone who wants to dive deeper into historical footage that you've discovered. Modern works can optionally give up their rights over creation and release it into the public domain as well. Some places you can go to find public domain and archival footage is Wikimedia Commons, archive.org, and the Prelinger Archives. All free, all linked in the description below. Stock footage doesn't need any direct citations. You're paying the author by paying the subscription to the platform. And part of that agreement that you've signed onto is that you don't need to give credit. Vox and others will simply list footage sourced from VideoBlocks. Again, not completely necessary, but a good general principle. You're already listing other elements from where they came from. You might as well include the stock footage as well. The same applies to stock photography from royalty-free and subscription-based platforms. News clips and articles, on the other hand, should always be cited. So when you're doing your research, pulling down resources, it will save time if you pull the headline name, the author, and the date immediately. Put it in a Google Doc or something. Save it for when you're editing your video together. That's much simpler than trying to track down the source of clips after the fact. Trust me, you only need to do that once to remember it every time after that. What about other video content? Well, as long as you're reporting the news, using it for educational use, or directly critiquing the material, you're generally covered under fair use. Although with everything in copyright, there's no hard and fast rule, and it's best to err on the side of safety. What does safety mean? Make sure you're not in the gray area of applying fair use. That is an easy way to get in trouble. And if you're using a clip, use as little of it as possible. Don't go around reposting, say, an entire episode of television. You're bound to get flagged and get a nice cease and desist letter in the mail. Also, make sure you're not making defamatory or derogatory statements about the content or the content creators while also featuring their content. That's an easy way to run into problems. Defamatory doesn't mean saying you disagree with someone's policies or politics. It means making baseless accusations that can ruin someone's name. So don't do that. And of course, your best bet is to get someone's permission in the first place if you can. This is pretty easy with small creators or Facebook and YouTube personalities. If you have some lead time, reach out and wait for a response. But for larger companies like a movie production studio, don't bother. You won't hear back from them. And if you do, they'll be demanding some serious licenses well outside what any of us can reasonably afford. Just follow your basic guidelines to make sure you're well within fair use, and pro tip, avoid using anything from Disney, no matter what. Yeah. Of course, there's a lot of research that goes into a video that you won't necessarily reference directly during the video. This is your background research, all the work you put in to understand the subject before you started talking about it. That's important too. And yeah, not every video has it, but it's worth citing for the folks who want to learn more. A citation like this works best in the end credits since it doesn't call up anything specific during the video. All right. Now you know how to cite, that leads us to the next crucial step, fact-checking. The fact-checking process can be comfortably categorized into 3 steps. Step 1 is research. Research is more than just learning the story and finding your angle. It's also about identifying early on if information will end up being problematic. You can keep an eye out for things like, have others debunked this, or is it supported by more than one source? It's important not to work backwards from an existing position of what is right or true and finding supporting evidence for it. Go in with an open mind, learn about the subject, and make sure to keep your skepticism high and try to stick to credible sources. Remember, you'll be citing these later. For complicated topics, it might be useful to construct a timeline while you're doing your research, not only to collect your thoughts, but also to check new information against the existing data points. Step 2 is writing. You'll undoubtedly be assembling a script of some sort, or at least a series of questions for your interviewees. More on that process and best practices in our scripting episode. When you're writing, this is the easiest time to link to specific lines or questions for citation. This helps you to double check information and helps everyone else who might be involved down the line understand where that particular fact is coming from. Step 3 is check your work. You should always go back and re-verify things that were stated or implied that hadn't been tied to a particular source. And yes, it is worth re-verifying. There are a lot of easy mistakes you might end up making if you skip this step. Things like numbers and statistics, including ages and dates especially. These are a simple slip-up that can carry throughout and balloon into larger assumptions in your writing. It can help if you recalculate percentages yourself when applicable and calculate ages of people or events by finding the birth date or date of that event. Another easy slip-up are proper nouns. It's important to double check these against official websites and credible sources, even for things like spelling. Errors like these happen all the time in far more prestigious publications. Famous quotes and supposed accomplishments made by notable figures are often misattributed too. So that's when you really need to double, triple check. And be careful, all your secondary and tertiary sources could be pulling from each other, so try to find something as close to a primary source as you can. That's fact-checking. If you follow all these rigorous principles of citation and checking your work, no one will be able to touch you. And you'll establish yourself as a trustworthy source that isn't afraid to say where you got your information from. This is an essential skill in our space, especially in politics when so much of what we do falls under so much intense scrutiny. Folks out there are just waiting for us to slip up, so don't give them the chance. For now, let us know in the comments below about a source that you are having difficulty citing properly, and we'll give it a look and we'll tell you our ill-informed, not legally sound opinion on what you should do about it. Until then, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that bell. And let's be real, folks, everyone can use this resource, so share it. And I'll see you in court.